US Attorney General Pam Bondi getting harshly criticized in what is known as the MAGA world after the Justice Department released a memo saying that the accused sex trafficker died by suicide in jail while awaiting trial, and that there is no so-called client list of notable figures involved with Epstein that have fueled right-wing conspiracy theories. Here's how both President Trump and Bondi answered a question about the DOJ memo during Tuesday's cabinet meeting. Have a listen.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
Well, Randy Kaye has more on that Fox News interview from February, the DOJ memo, and the fallout that this is all causing in the MAGA world.
In February, Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked whether the Department of Justice would release accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein's so-called list of clients.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that.
That was red meat for many on the far right, who since Epstein's death in his jail cell in 2019 have suggested that the government is hiding secrets related to him. One of the conspiracy theories? That Epstein kept a client list to use as blackmail against named powerful figures. Bondi did not discourage the conspiracies.
What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information.
Bondi never delivered, except to offer a few social media influencers binders of documents in February this year, much of which had already been made public. She wasn't the only one throwing a bone to conspiracy-minded theorists in MAGA world. Here's Dan Bongino on his podcast before he became Deputy FBI Director.
What the hell are they hiding with Jeffrey Epstein?
Bongino also raised doubts about Epstein's jail cell suicide.
The questions surrounding this alleged suicide are numerous.
Yeah.
And are worth entertaining and worth getting to the bottom of quickly.
The Department of Justice and the FBI have now put those questions to rest with an unsigned memo released this week that rules out any smoking gun. The memo confirms Epstein died by suicide, something Bongino and FBI Director Kash Patel were already starting to admit publicly.
You know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself.
The memo also says there is no incriminating client list, adding, there was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. The backlash in MAGA world has been swift. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones broke down in tears as he accused the White House of being part of a cover-up. And far-right activist Laura Loomer is calling on Bondi to resign.
Well, that was Randy Kaye reporting. Let's not forget Elon Musk in all of this, inserting himself into the middle of this controversy in the midst of his feud with the president. He accused Donald Trump without evidence of being in the Epstein files in a post that's since been deleted, also writing that it is the real reason they've not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Then just yesterday posting, how can people be expected to have faith in Trump if he won't release the Epstein files?
And a series of scathing posts on X, longtime Trump ally Laura Loomer calling for the president to fire Attorney General Pam Bondi. It comes after a memo released by the DOJ and the FBI this week confirmed Epstein died by suicide. And Bondi said that there is no evidence that Epstein kept a, quote, client list. CNN's Elena Treen is live from the White House. One of the issues here is that it's some of his cabinet members themselves are the ones that ginned up the story about Epstein before they were in office, and now they are facing backlash from some in the MAGA world. What are you learning?
That's right. And despite what you just heard from the president there are a lot of people in this White House and the broader Trump administration as well who are really frustrated with how not only the Justice Department, but specifically how Attorney General Pamela Bondi has handled this. And, you know, the release of that memo on a Sunday heading into a busy week. Some people told me, one Trump advisor, I should say, that called this a political nightmare, this memo that they released, and argued, why didn't they do this, you know, going into the holiday weekend rather than coming out of it to try and bury some of this news, or even better yet, they argued, wait until after the midterms. One Trump administration official told me that Bondi had bungled the case from the start by over-promising some of these bombshell findings, only to do what they argued, under-deliver in the end. And you're exactly right, Sarah, that it's not just a lot of people in the MAGA movement and the president's base who had been calling for more information on these files, asking for them to be unsealed by the judge in this case, asking for this Justice Department to open an investigation into any potential accomplices that Jeffrey Epstein may have had. There are people in this administration, people like Vice President J.D. Vance, the FBI Director Dan Bongino, for example, who was involved closely on this, who had prior to this administration argued there was more to this case and the Epstein files than maybe officials were letting on. And so that's why there's so much scrutiny on this. And adding to some of these problems, Sarah, is what we had heard from Pam Bondi herself back in February. She was asked during a Fox News interview, you know, what is the status of that so-called client list that Epstein may have had? And she argued it was sitting on her desk for review. Of course, the memo that came out by the Justice Department on Monday said there is no such client list and that one of those doesn't exist. Now, she did try and, you know, explain that interview during that cabinet meeting as well. I want you to take a listen to how she put it.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that.
So as you could hear there, Sarah, she's trying to argue that she was referring to a much broader case that was on her desk, but not an answer that, I mean, I spoke with many people after Bondi's response there who told me that they just weren't satisfied with that type of answer. I will say, though, that the president was briefed last week by Bondi as well as the FBI Director Kash Patel on some of the findings of that investigation, so he wasn't caught off guard by this. But again, a lot of people not very happy with how this has been handled, and specifically how Pam Bondi has really messaged on this.
Yeah, interestingly, they did release more of the JFK assassination files, and there are a lot of people wondering why these files aren't also being released. We will see what happens. Elena Treen, great reporting from you from the White House this morning for us. John?
All right, with us now, CNN political commentators, Democratic strategist Maria Cardona and Republican strategist Brad Todd. Brad, let me just read you what some people who have been supportive of President Trump in the past, in some cases fiercely supportive, have been saying here. Laura Loomer says of Pam Bondi, she needs to be fired. She has tainted the investigation. Megyn Kelly says her days are numbered as a member of the Trump administration. And then Elon Musk, who I don't know if we can qualify as currently supportive of President Trump, says how can people be expected to have faith in Trump if he won't release the Epstein files? So, Brad, let me just ask you about what Megyn Kelly said of Pam Bondi. Her days are numbered as a member of the Trump administration. Do you think her days are numbered?
I don't, and I know I think Megyn Kelly is a serious commentator most of the time, but there is something to the notion that there's a clickbait industrial complex out there, and this is the perfect kind of tabloid story for them. That this drives clicks from people who can't quit doom scrolling on social media, and that it's really nothing more than that. And I think the president's right. There are serious things happening. There are serious progress being made in things like making sure taxes don't go up, trying to crack down on illegal immigration. And I think the fact that so many people in this clickbait industrial complex, if you will, are focused on what is really a silly story is pretty insulting.
Yeah, but to sort of misquote Scream here, the clickbaiting was coming from inside the House for a long time. Brad. It was supporters, fierce supporters of President Trump, people working to get him elected, people who now have positions of power, whether it be Dan Bongino or whether it be the Attorney General Pam Bondi when she said she was reviewing the client files, whether it be then Senator, now Vice President J.D. Vance, who talked openly about the Epstein investigation and talked about the need for transparency. So, Maria, what next?
John, I'm glad you pointed that out, because the clickbait industrial complex, as Brad likes to call it, is an intricate part of the Trump family MAGA supporter group. And so you can't disassociate the two, though I understand why, because Pam Bondi is in a lot of trouble. Therefore, that is going to reflect incredibly badly on the Trump administration. It underscores the corruption, the hypocrisy, the incompetence, and the gaslighting that comes from all of those people that you just mentioned, John. And frankly, it makes now voters, MAGA voters, as well as mainstream voters go, why is it that now they have no interest in the Epstein files and in that supposed client list that now doesn't exist? Who might be on it? That is going to be really hurtful to the Trump administration, that they don't want that getting out. This is not the last that they're going to hear of it, because they are the ones that ginned it up, thinking maybe Democratic officials were on it, thinking maybe they could own the libs with it. And now it's backfiring.